Imagine there is a lot of evidence that small creatures once lived on Earth since ancient times. Not dwarfs like the ones we imagine in fairy tales. No, we are talking about creatures about 50 or 60 centimeters tall, with strange features not like ordinary humans. Researchers throughout history have found very strange evidence about them. Tiny mummies buried in caves, miniature skulls, and even stories from ancient peoples that talk about small folks who lived in the mountains and forests. The evidence says they really did exist, but their whereabouts now are a big mystery. And here comes the mysterious question: what happened to these creatures? Why did they suddenly disappear? And where are their locations? The story began with a very strange legend, a legend told by different ancient civilizations. A legend that talks about a type of human, but with very special traits. Their size was extremely small, yet their nature was fierce, deceptive, and cunning. These are the dwarfs. Even though their name might suggest weakness or helplessness, all the legends about them were warnings. They always warned humans about them because they were not easy creatures at all. Let's take an example: Norse mythology. There, they described creatures very small in size, but with deceitful and treacherous behavior. They loved to trick and cheat humans, and were skilled at trapping people. And the strangest part, they were not just small-sized. No, the legend described them as having bodies covered with hair, unusually long arms compared to their bodies, and faces with rough, very masculine features. In other words, their appearance gave a sense of strength and toughness, despite their small size. And this strength was not only physical, but also in craftsmanship. The Scandinavians distinguished them as some of the most skilled craftsmen, masters in blacksmithing, carpentry, and tool making, to the extent that they described them as among the best artisans in the world. As for their place of residence, the legends said they lived underground in secret places that no one knew about. And in other accounts, it was said they existed in the coldest regions of the Earth, at the South Pole, in Antarctica. Up to this point, anyone might say, that's it, this is just a legend, pure fantasy with no basis in truth. But the surprise is, we find the same stories repeated in a very distant place, Algeria. There, talk appeared about the same creatures, with the same traits, but under a different name. They called them sarls. The people of Algeria described these creatures more precisely. They said they were very small, and their arms were so long that they touched the ground while walking. Their hair was rough and thick, standing up strangely, as if it was stiff beside their heads from its toughness. But the legend added more here. At night their eyes turned into a glowing red, and their clothes? They were ragged, torn, and worn out, as if they were always living in a state of poverty or wandering. And the legend continued, saying these creatures were not isolated or hiding. On the contrary, they lived among humans normally. But over time, a serious threat appeared against them. The stray dogs in the streets began attacking them, and with humans inventing weapons, killing them became very easy. And here, the dwarfs became afraid. They felt that their existence among humans had become a danger to their lives. So, they decided to leave the villages and towns and escape to the mountains. And from Algeria, we moved to the island of Sumatra in Indonesia. The surprise is that the people there described the same creatures with the exact details mentioned by the Scandinavians and Algerians. They said there was an entire tribe of these creatures living inside the dense forests, completely away from human eyes, a tribe named the Mante tribe. Their height did not exceed 50 centimeters, very small, but their traits were identical: bodies covered with hair, long arms, and extreme aggressiveness. The account says they were a violent and fierce tribe, always in conflict, and they had no relation to the civilization or development that humans had reached. They were isolated, living far away from everything modern. But the strange thing is, this tribe suddenly disappeared, without any introductions or known reason. But this story did not remain quiet for long. Suddenly, the world was shaken by a strange video that spread on social media and news channels. The video showed a group of young men riding motorcycles in the middle of the forest. They were playing around, filming, and absorbed in their race, and suddenly, a very short man appeared in front of them. But not short in the sense of having dwarfism. No, his size was extremely small, exactly like the creatures we've been talking about since the beginning of the story. He was holding a spear, wearing primitive clothes, and standing, pointing the spear at the young men as if threatening them or about to attack. The young men were so shocked by the sight that one of them fell off his motorcycle. The whole scene turned into chaos, and when they tried to chase him with their motorcycles, that creature ran away quickly and jumped into the thick forest grass. And just like that, he disappeared. He disappeared because of his very small size. From here, after this video, people started talking again about the Mante tribe, saying that they never really disappeared like people thought, but rather, with cunning and intelligence, they managed to stay hidden in the forest for 4 whole centuries. Imagine 4 centuries living away from human eyes, witnessing death, witnessing changes, while people thought they had gone extinct. And if this happened in the forest, a place where anyone could stumble in by accident, then what might be hiding in the mountains? After the video went viral, people literally went crazy. Everyone kept asking themselves, are these creatures really still alive? And if they are, how are they living among us without us noticing? In the south, specifically in the Lut Desert near the Afghan border, during ordinary exploration missions, researchers accidentally stumbled upon something astonishing: an entire village of dwarfs. This village contained about 200 houses, but not ordinary houses, very small houses to the point of amazement. The tallest house among them was between 130 to 140 centimeters in height, and there were even smaller ones, 120 centimeters, and some as little as 70 centimeters. To enter the house, you would have to be the same size as the dwarfs we've been talking about from the beginning. After studying the site, scientists estimated the village to be around 1,500 years old. And this raises a huge question. Does this mean that the dwarfs really lived there 1,500 years ago? The evidence says yes. This village was completely isolated from the world. The design of the houses suggests that its inhabitants never interacted with ordinary humans at all. And the strangest part, almost every house followed the same pattern. 3 rooms, 1 for sleeping, 1 for storage, and 1 for the kitchen. And although this village, or the town of dwarfs, was never touched or altered since the day it was built, and although its remains still stand as evidence of its age of more than 1,500 years, the scientists, when they saw it, gave very strange explanations. Instead of saying that dwarfs lived here, they said something else. They said that the inhabitants who lived in this village were just ordinary humans, but they all suffered from a certain disease that caused short stature and stunted growth. And they justified their words by saying, life in the region was extremely harsh, intense heat, little rainfall, drought, and very poor nutrition. The people there ate limited kinds of food, and there was almost no meat, which led to severe malnutrition. Also, the water in that area was proven to have high levels of mercury, which caused people to get sick and made their deformities worse. And when they tried to reproduce, the children were born with the same diseases and the same traits: short, weak, and frail. But this explanation doesn't make sense. Why? Because researchers found in the village very tiny tools, perfectly suited to the size of its inhabitants. So, if they were merely weak or sick humans, why would they make tools that small? Why were the doors, kitchens, and beds all designed to their size? At this point, it was no longer just a matter of disease or malnutrition. The whole scene shows that those who lived in this village were truly a different community, a community that was small-sized from the very beginning. All the explanations and justifications the scientists gave changed after the year 2005, because at that time something astonishing was discovered: a mummified body only 25 centimeters long. 25 centimeters, that's almost the same length as the ruler we used in school. And the strangest part, this body was of a small child. But is there any normal human baby born with a height of 25 centimeters? Impossible. Even a normal puppy is taller than that. Scientists estimated the mummy's age to be between 400 and 500 years old. and this was solid evidence that the inhabitants of the village were not just ordinary short humans, but truly dwarfs, as the legends described. And this village became known as the village of Makunik. But the biggest surprise, it wasn't just one village. After that, scientists discovered 13 other dwarf villages, with features even stranger than Makunik itself. In some of these villages, the houses were no taller than 60 or 70 centimeters, and the tallest house among them was just 1 meter high. That's even smaller than the houses of Makunik, which reached up to 140 centimeters. The problem is, despite these villages being real, no traces of daily life were found inside them. No skeletons, no remains of animals, no farmlands, no evidence that they lived a complete life until their end. It was as if they suddenly walked away and left everything behind. And this raises mysterious questions. If these dwarfs truly died out, why haven't we found their remains? And if they migrated, why would they abandon their tools, houses, and entire way of life? What was the reason that made them leave so suddenly, as if they vanished from the earth? What's even stranger is that the discovery of these villages was relatively recent, around the year 1846, but the ancestors had been speaking about dwarfs and warning about them for thousands of years. Surprisingly, when scientists examined Makunik and the other 13 villages, they concluded that they truly belonged to dwarfs. They even admitted it officially and named the region the Land of the Dwarfs. But the story doesn't end there. On the island of Flores in Indonesia in 2003, scientists discovered a type of human called Homo floresiensis. These people were very short, with a height that didn't exceed 1 meter, and the media called them the Hobbits. This was considered strong scientific evidence that dwarfs truly existed, living as recently as the last 50,000 years. And if we look at the present day, there are tribes called the Negritos, living in the Philippines and parts of Asia. These tribes are also small in size, rarely exceeding 150 centimeters in height, and they are still alive today. Another important point, in 1932, in America, a very small mummy was discovered, named Pedro Mountain Mummy. Its height was about 40 centimeters, yet it had a complete human form. To this day, scientists still debate, was it a deformed fetus or a fully grown dwarf? Beyond that, DNA studies on Homo floresiensis confirmed that their short stature wasn't caused by disease. It wasn't a disorder, it was proof of a completely different type of human.